The smell of charcoal and cedar smoke drifted through the spring air as I stood at the edge of the community park, holding my 6-year-old son's hand. I'd lived in Maplewood Ridge for 3 years, paid my dues, mowed my lawn to regulation height, and never missed an HOA meeting. But the way Patricia Hendricks was staring at me, with her clipboard clutched like a shield and her mouth twisted into a smile that didn't reach her eyes, I knew today was going to be different. She was marching toward me with purpose, her heels clicking on the brick pathway like a countdown timer. And I knew, deep in my gut, that I was about to be asked to leave my own neighborhood barbecue. The afternoon sun filtered through oak trees in golden shafts, illuminating a scene that should have been welcoming. Children's laughter echoed from the playground. The sizzle of burgers on the grill filled the air with mouth-watering aromas. Families clustered around picnic tables, their conversations blending into a comfortable hum of suburban contentment. "Dad, can I go play?" Elijah tugged my hand, his eyes bright with excitement. He'd picked out his favorite Captain America shirt that morning, practiced introducing himself in the mirror. My son wanted so badly to belong here. "Just a minute, buddy," I said, watching Patricia close the distance between us. "I'm Marcus Taylor, 38 years old, 15 years in the Marine Corps, 2 tours in Afghanistan. There's a bronze star in a drawer at home next to my discharge papers and a titanium rod in my left leg where an IED blast tore through muscle and bone in Helmand Province. The physical scars are visible, jagged lines across my calf, a puckered mark on my shoulder. The invisible ones run deeper, waking me at 3 a.m. with my heart hammering, convinced I'm back in the desert. After the Marines medically retired me, I spent 2 years figuring out who I was without the uniform. It was brutal. The loss of identity, purpose, brotherhood. I found my footing eventually, working now as a veterans counselor at the VA hospital, helping other former service members navigate that same treacherous passage from military to civilian life. And I chose Maplewood Ridge deliberately for Elijah. Good schools, safe streets, the stability I never had growing up on Chicago's South Side. I paid more than I could comfortably afford, but my son deserved this chance. What I didn't fully anticipate was Patricia Hendricks, mid-50s, professionally highlighted blonde hair, always dressed like she's heading to a country club luncheon. She'd ruled the Maplewood Ridge HOA for 7 years with an iron fist wrapped in passive-aggressive politeness. Fines for trash cans left out an hour too long. Violation notices for unauthorized mailbox colors. That clipboard was her weapon, and she wielded it with precision. She reached us now, her smile plastic and cold. "Marcus, isn't it? I don't believe I saw your name on the RSVP list for today's event." I kept my voice calm, pulling out my phone. "I submitted my RSVP 2 weeks ago, Patricia. Right here, confirmation number 2847. She barely glanced at the screen. Well, we have very strict capacity limits for insurance purposes, and I'm afraid we've reached our maximum attendance for today." I looked past her at the park. 30 people, maybe, scattered across a space that could hold 3 times that. The pavilion was half empty. The lie was transparent, almost insulting. "There seems to be plenty of space," I said evenly. My son was really looking forward to this. Elijah's hand tightened in mine, and I felt his confusion radiating through that small grip. "I understand your disappointment," Patricia said, her condescension dripping like poison honey. "But rules exist for everyone's safety. Perhaps you could attend next year if you remembered to RSVP through the proper channels earlier." I recognized this moment. I'd felt it when store security followed me through aisles, when police pulled me over for matching a description, when white officers questioned my competence before seeing me lead men through combat. The microaggression was crystal clear, but I wouldn't give her the satisfaction of seeing me angry. Then Tom and Sarah Chen arrived, an Asian-American couple from 2 doors down. Patricia's transformation was instant. Warm smile, welcoming gestures. Tom, Sarah, so wonderful you could make it. Please help yourselves to everything. The contrast was deliberate, cruel. I made my decision. Patricia, I pay my HOA dues every month on time. I'm a resident here with full rights to community events. We're staying. Her face flushed pink, then red. Well, I'll need to consult with the board about this disruption. Please wait here. She marched toward the grill pavilion, gesturing to a cluster of older residents. I watched heads turn, whispers spread like wildfire. I guided Elijah toward the play area, combat training kicking in. Stay calm, assess the situation. Don't give them ammunition. Over the next 30 minutes, Patricia orchestrated a masterclass in social exclusion. Food tables were suddenly being restocked whenever I approached. Parents steered their children away from Elijah at the playground. My son's face fell with each rejection, but he kept trying, kept reaching out, breaking my heart a little more each time. Patricia positioned herself near the beverage station, speaking just loud enough to carry. We really need to review our security protocols. Property values depend on maintaining standards. Then came her masterstroke. Her voice crackled over the PA system. Attention, everyone! Due to unforeseen capacity issues, we'll need all attendees to present their community event wristbands. Wristbands distributed that morning via email to confirmed guests, an email I never received. I watched Tom and Sarah. Chen approached the check-in table without wristbands. Patricia's warmth was instant. Oh, Tom, Sarah! Email glitch. Let me get you your wristbands right away. She fastened them on their wrists with a smile. Then she looked at me. The warmth vanished. I'm sorry, Marcus, but without a wristband, I can't allow you to stay. Insurance liability. I felt every eye in that park on me. Felt Elijah's hand trembling in mine. This was the moment Patricia wanted, where I'd lose my temper, give her justification to paint me as threatening, to have me removed and vindicate her actions. But I'm a Marine. I've faced enemy combatants and IED explosions. Patricia Hendricks, with her clipboard, didn't scare me. My hand reached for my phone. I opened the group chat labeled Semper Fi Forever. 37 former Marines from my unit, scattered across 3 states, but always just a text away. I typed, Need backup. Maplewood Ridge Community Park. Now. Bring everyone. Responses came within seconds. On my way. Diesel 15 minutes out. Katie rolling. Jamal Patricia approached again. Flanked by 2 board members, Richard Pemberton and Linda Mitchell, ready to deliver what she thought was her final blow. That's when I saw the first vehicle pull into the parking lot. A black Ford F-150 with an eagle, globe, and anchor decal. Then a silver Chevy Silverado. Then a blue Dodge Ram. They kept coming, parking in military precision. My phone buzzed. We're here. Where you want us? Diesel Eye looked down at Elijah, trying so hard to be brave, blinking back tears. Then at Patricia, completely unaware that the balance of power was about to shift. I didn't smile. I just stood taller, shoulders back, and waited. Because Patricia Hendricks was about to learn something the Marine Corps taught me. You never leave a Marine behind. And you definitely don't mess with one and expect no backup. The real barbecue was about to begin. Patricia was mid-sentence, delivering her rehearsed speech about community standards and proper procedures, when the first Marine walked through the entrance gate, then the second, then 5 more, then a dozen. They kept coming, a tide of men and women in various states of civilian dress, but all wearing the same unmistakable bearing. The way they moved, the way they scanned their surroundings, the way they immediately locked eyes on me and formed up without a single word of instruction. Patricia's voice faltered, her clipboard lowered, and I watched the color drain from her face as she finally understood. She just picked a fight with the wrong veteran. Diego Diesel Ramirez came through first. my former platoon sergeant, built like a fire hydrant with forearms like steel cables. Puerto Rican kid from the Bronx who'd stayed 22 years, retiring as a master sergeant. He wore jeans and a faded Marines t-shirt, but moved like he was still in uniform. Behind him came Jamal Washington, tall and lean, wire-frame glasses masking his expert marksman record. Then Katie O'Brien, the combat medic who'd saved my life after the IED blast, her red hair pulled back in a practical ponytail. David Lee, Mike Gunner Patterson, Sarah Rodriguez, Marines I'd served with, bled with, trusted with my life. They formed up naturally, instinctively creating a protective perimeter around me and Elijah without needing direction. Muscle memory, tactical positioning drilled through thousands of hours until it's as natural as breathing. They represented every background, every race, united by something stronger than demographics. The bond forged in combat. Patricia had frozen mid-sentence, her prepared script evaporating. Richard Pemberton and Linda Mitchell looked equally stunned. Patricia recovered first, raising her clipboard like a shield. "Excuse me, but this is a private community event. Are all of you residents of Maplewood Ridge?" Her voice had lost its edge, replaced by something uncertain. She was used to intimidating suburban homeowners afraid of HOA fines. But these were veterans who'd faced actual enemies. Diesel stepped forward. Patricia instinctively took a half-step back. "Ma'am," he said, his voice a rumbling bass that carried without being raised, "we're here as guests of Staff Sergeant Marcus Taylor, a decorated combat veteran and homeowner in this community. Is there a problem with residents inviting guests to a community barbecue?" Richard Pemberton moved to flank Patricia, crossing his arms. "The event has capacity restrictions. We simply don't have the infrastructure to accommodate this many additional people." Katie O'Brien laughed, sharp, knowing. "Capacity restrictions? Sir, I've treated mass casualties in a field hospital with less space than this. I think you can handle 15 more people at a barbecue." Several residents chuckled. Tom Chen nodded in agreement, then physically moved closer to our position. Silent solidarity. Other neighbors I'd helped over the years began gravitating toward us. Linda Mitchell tried next, shifting to false reasonableness. "We're just concerned about insurance liability. Then you'd file a claim," Jamal interrupted, pulling out his phone. "According to the liability insurance policy listed on the Maplewood Ridge HOA disclosure documents, public record, by the way, you're covered for community events up to 500 attendees. Currently, there are approximately 45 people present. Adding 15 brings us to 60. That's 12% of your coverage limit." He looked up, expression bland. "Would you like me to do the math on liability risk percentage?" Linda's face went red. Richard sputtered. Patricia's knuckles went white on her clipboard. "What Patricia didn't know," I said, my voice cutting through the tension, "was that I'd been documenting everything for the past 18 months. I pulled out my phone, navigating to a folder labeled Documentation. I'm not naive about discrimination. I recognized the patterns immediately after moving in. The random HOA violations targeting only certain residents. Myself, the Chens, the Johnsons, the Patels. The community events where notices accidentally weren't sent to specific households. I'd been trained in intelligence gathering, screenshots of emails, doorbell camera footage showing Patricia delivering flyers to white neighbors while skipping mine. HOA violation records showing 87% of violations targeted the 6 non-white households in a community of 43 homes. I also discovered through my veterans network that Katie's sister is a civil rights attorney specializing in housing discrimination, and David works for Channel 7 News as an investigative reporter. I hadn't planned to deploy these resources today, but Patricia's public humiliation of my son changed the calculation. The crowd was growing, residents arriving drawn by the commotion. The community split visibly into factions, Patricia's loyalists near the pavilion, the uncomfortable silent middle, and my growing coalition of Marines, the Chens, the Johnsons, younger families. Then Harold Westbrook joined us, 75, white, a Korean War veteran who'd lived here 32 years. He walked slowly but deliberately across the pavilion, stopped in front of me, and extended his hand. "Son," he said loud enough for everyone to hear, "I didn't serve in Korea so punks could disrespect those who served after me. You've got my support." The statement hit like a bomb. Harold was Maplewood Ridge royalty. His endorsement shifted everything. More residents crossed to our side. Patricia sensed she was losing control. Panic crept into her eyes. She made a critical tactical error. She escalated. "I'm calling the police," she announced, pulling out her phone with shaking hands. "This is trespassing and creating a public disturbance." Diesel's laugh was cold. "Please do, ma'am. Please call the police and explain why you're trying to remove a decorated veteran from a community event in the neighborhood where he pays property taxes." David Lee stepped forward, pulling out press credentials. David Lee, Channel 7 News. "Ma'am, would you be willing to go on record about your decision to exclude Staff Sergeant Taylor? I'd love to hear the official HOA statement." Patricia's face cycled from red to white. I don't need to explain myself to the media." I finally spoke with the authority of someone who'd led men through combat. "Patricia, you're right about one thing. This is about community standards. The question is, what standards do we want to uphold? You tried to embarrass me because you thought I was alone, powerless, that I'd leave quietly. But I'm not alone. I've never been alone. These people taught me that brothers and sisters have your back, and this community is about to learn the same lesson." A police cruiser pulled into the parking lot. Patricia straightened, believing she was about to be vindicated. Two officers stepped out. I recognized one immediately. Officer James Crawford, who'd attended my veteran support group for 6 months after his own PTSD struggles following military service. Crawford surveyed the scene. Me, the assembled Marines, Patricia. "Someone called about a disturbance?" His expression was neutral, but I caught the slight nod he gave me. A signal between veterans. Patricia rushed forward, words tumbling out in a practiced victim narrative. But Crawford held up his hand. "Ma'am, before you continue, I need to inform you that this conversation is being recorded on my body camera, and anything you say can be reviewed for potential civil rights violations. Now, would you like to explain again why you're trying to remove a resident from a community event?" The trap was set. The audience was watching, and Patricia Hendricks was about to be given all the rope she needed. Patricia's mouth opened and closed like a fish drowning in air. She'd built her power on whispers and implications, on coded language and plausible deniability, on the confidence that no one would challenge her directly with witnesses and cameras present. But now, standing in front of a police officer's body camera, surrounded by veterans who'd faced actual enemies instead of HOA bylaws, she finally understood what I'd known the moment I decided not to leave. You can't win a war you started by ambushing the wrong target. And I was about to show her exactly what happens when your carefully constructed empire gets a dose of transparency. Officer Crawford stood with his body camera activated, pen and notepad ready, waiting for Patricia's explanation. I narrated the shift in power dynamics silently. Patricia could no longer rely on coded language and selective enforcement. Everything was on official record now. Patricia attempted to reframe the narrative. "Officer, we have clear capacity restrictions for community events due to insurance liability. This resident," she gestured dismissively at me, "didn't follow proper RSVP procedures, then invited numerous unauthorized guests, creating a safety hazard." Crawford's expression didn't change. "Ma'am, I see approximately 45 people in a park space rated for 200. Can you explain the specific safety hazard?" Patricia sputtered about procedures and insurance requirements, but her voice lacked conviction. David Lee stepped forward professionally. "Officer, for the record, I've been reviewing the Maplewood Ridge HOA bylaws on my phone. There's no attendance cap listed for community events in the governing documents. Would you like to see?" He offered his phone showing the official bylaws. Crawford examined the document, then looked at Patricia. "Ma'am, is there a written attendance policy I should be aware of?" Patricia's silence was damning. I delivered the first major blow. "Officer Crawford, I have documentation of a pattern of discriminatory behavior by the HOA leadership. Selective enforcement of rules, disparate treatment of minority residents, targeted harassment. I've been compiling evidence for 18 months. I walked Crawford through my documentation with military precision. Email communications showing Patricia denying my event information requests while approving identical requests from white residents within hours. Doorbell camera footage from multiple homes showing Patricia personally delivering flyers to white neighbors while skipping hours. HOA violation records showing 87% of violations targeted the 6 non-white households. A silver Lexus pulled into the parking lot. Katie smiled. "That'll be my sister." Attorney Michelle O'Brien stepped out like she was entering a courtroom. Charcoal pantsuit, leather briefcase, quiet authority earned from years of winning cases. She introduced herself to Crawford, handed him a business card, then addressed the crowd. "I'm Michelle O'Brien, civil rights attorney specializing in Fair Housing Act violations and HOA discrimination cases. Based on the preliminary evidence Mr. Taylor has shared with my office, there appear to be substantial grounds for both civil and federal complaints against the Maplewood Ridge HOA leadership." The crowd erupted in murmurs. Patricia's board members, Richard and Linda, physically stepped away from her, distancing themselves. "I never approved any of those emails," Linda said quickly, self-preservation kicking in. Richard nodded frantically. The board delegated those responsibilities to Patricia. Patricia stood alone now, her support melting away, her empire collapsing. Harold Westbrook stepped into the center space between the groups. His weathered voice cut through the noise. "I've lived in Maplewood Ridge for 32 years. I watched this community get built from farmland, and I've watched Patricia Hendricks turn it into her personal kingdom for 7 years, using fear and fines to control everyone." He turned to me. "Son, I'm ashamed I didn't speak up sooner. I saw what was happening. I told myself it wasn't my business. I was wrong, and I'm done being silent." His speech broke the dam. Jennifer Morrison admitted she'd noticed black neighbors never got event notifications, but was afraid to question Patricia's authority. The Johnsons shared their documentation. A $500 fine for a non-conforming mailbox identical to 6 others owned by white families, none of whom were fined. Tom Chen revealed Patricia had twice threatened to report them for illegal business operations for their home-based graphic design studio, something multiple other residents did without harassment. The physical transformation was powerful. Residents literally moved their bodies to stand with me. Patricia became isolated, her support shrinking to a handful of uncomfortable loyalists. Patricia made one last desperate play. She turned on the tears. Her voice became small, vulnerable. "I don't understand. I've given 7 years to this community. I've worked so hard. And now I'm being called a racist? This is just a misunderstanding." Katie O'Brien stepped forward, her voice filled with quiet steel. "Ma'am, I've held dying Marines in my arms. I've performed triage under rocket fire. Don't you dare stand there and play victim when you systematically tried to drive good families out of this community because of the color of their skin." The tears stopped. Patricia's mask fell completely. Officer Crawford delivered his assessment. "Ma'am, I'm not finding any disturbance caused by Mr. Taylor or his guests. However, based on the evidence presented, I'm recommending that my department's Community Relations Division review this matter for potential civil rights violations. You'll be contacted within 48 hours. He handed Patricia a case number. Attorney O'Brien served Patricia with formal notice. Ms. Hendricks, you're being notified of intent to file a Federal Fair Housing Act complaint, along with civil suits for harassment and discrimination on behalf of multiple Maplewood Ridge residents. You'll want to contact your legal representation. Richard Pemberton delivered the final blow. T2. I move for an emergency HOA board meeting tonight at 7 p.m. to discuss the immediate removal of Patricia Hendricks as president and a comprehensive review of all HOA policies and enforcement actions from the past 3 years. Linda Mitchell seconded instantly. The motion carried by overwhelming voice vote. Patricia, realizing she'd been completely outmaneuvered, looked at me with pure hatred and hissed, "You're going to regret this." The words were caught on multiple cameras. I didn't respond with anger. I kneeled next to Elijah and spoke loud enough for everyone to hear. Remember this, son. When you stand up for what's right, you won't always stand alone. And bullies only have power when good people stay silent. Then I stood, looked at Patricia, and said with military formality, "Ms. Hendricks, I came here today to enjoy a barbecue with my son and my neighbors. That's still what I intend to do. You're welcome to stay or leave. That's your choice. But you don't get to decide who belongs in this community anymore." Epilogue: The barbecue continued, transformed. The Marines took over the grills. Diesel produced enough burgers and ribs to feed twice the crowd. Music played, classic rock and Motown. Children, including Elijah, finally played without conflict's shadow. Patricia left without another word, her loyalists trailing behind like a defeated army. I watched her go, feeling no triumph, just exhaustion and satisfaction that I'd protected my son from learning the wrong lesson. By nightfall, the emergency HOA meeting resulted in Patricia's removal. She resigned rather than face a formal vote. Harold Westbrook's election as interim president and the formation of a diversity and inclusion committee. Attorney O'Brien agreed to conduct a full audit with remediation for targeted families. 3 weeks later, Channel 7 aired David Lee's investigative report on HOA discrimination, featuring Maplewood Ridge as a case study. The story went viral, accumulating millions of views, with comments from veterans nationwide expressing solidarity. People ask me if it was worth it. The confrontation, the publicity, the uncomfortable months that followed. They ask if I regret not just leaving that day. I tell them to look at Elijah. My son now lives in a community where he knows people will stand up for what's right. He saw his father refuse to be diminished, saw a brotherhood that transcends race come together in defense of justice, saw ordinary neighbors find courage to speak truth to power. The Marines taught me that you never leave a fallen comrade behind. But that day taught me something more. That brotherhood isn't just for the battlefield. It's for the everyday wars we fight against discrimination, against hate, against the small tyrannies that try to make people feel like they don't belong. Patricia Hendricks tried to kick me out because she didn't think I belonged. What she didn't understand is that belonging isn't something people like her grant or revoke. It's something we claim by showing up, by standing firm, by building bridges instead of walls. When my Marine brothers showed up that day, they weren't just defending me. They were defending every person who's ever been told they don't belong, every family targeted for being different, every child who deserves to grow up in a community that values courage over comfort and justice over silence. That's the legacy I want for Elijah. Not a world without conflict, but the knowledge that when conflict comes, and it will come, you face it with integrity, with preparation, with allies who share your values, and with the unshakable belief that doing the right thing is always worth the cost. Semper Fi isn't just a motto. It's a promise, always faithful, to your brothers and sisters in arms, to your community, to the principles worth fighting for. And that promise doesn't end when you take off the uniform. It just finds new battlefields.